today. Matt Earp coming from Meta Reality Labs to talk about all things VR, spatial, words that are translated into worlds. So with that, I will take up no more space and hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, Welcome everybody. Give me a second while I share my screen and share the right screen. Can you see me as an avatar? It says Kid Kameleon. Cool. I see some thumbs up. Thank you. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to kind of introduce myself. I don't think I can see the chat in this mode, so if there are questions that come up that seem relevant to kind of the immediate moment or the thing I'm talking about, feel free to call them out. But we're going to have a lively discussion at the end. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm going to be focused on my work for building fully immersive experiences. I'm going to show you a lot of stuff from Horizon and Meta Reality Labs, and really going to be focusing on the words and ideas that we use to frame these experiences and some of the aspects of the experiences, and use that as a lens into just broadly talking about the experience design of these spaces. Also, I should say all thoughts and ideas here are my own. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not Meta, the company. So everything I'm saying is sort of aligned with how the company thinks about things in general. Cool. So this is me, content designer, Reality Labs, and this is sort of my path from North Carolina to Wesleyan and Connecticut, New York, the Bay Area, Berlin, and back to the Bay Area, joining Facebook, now Meta, in 2018. I've been there for 6.5 years now, to future spaces, to infinity. And what I should say about each one of these places that's really important is that I kind of soaked up the lens of culture and the creative scene in each one of these spots. That has, like, each one of these places has really influenced like the way that I think about design issues and also language. So a lot of my work is about sort of emergent storytelling and stories that come out of a place and feeling over narrative. So in that spirit, I'm only going to touch on 5 threads that have shaped my approach to experience design, rather than take you through a portfolio or all my work. So consider these like as ingredients for how I'm thinking about the work that I do. So the first one is theater. I grew up a theater kid. I was just joking with Josh about whether his kid was a theater kid or not. Turns out he's more of a film kid. But I was a theater kid through and through. I did my undergrad at Wesleyan University. The theater department there was really open to experimentation, different disciplines coming together. I was really into kind of bringing music into the space and sound into the space. And one thing that I took away from this was a real desire and a set of colleagues that really wanted to hack spaces. And so we would do things like putting the audience the audience on the stage and the actors in the seats, or doing we always wanted to do a show like completely backstage if we could, or using the foyer or the outside as creative theatrical spaces. And so that really influenced the way that I like theater can happen anywhere. And that influenced me going forward. And what you're seeing here is my senior thesis, which was a stage adaptation of David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, which I had the hubris at 21 to try and do. So that's what this is. Second thread, science fiction. I'm a lifelong science fiction fan, been that way ever since I was a small kid. 2 things I take from this. Science fiction, the way I like to think about it is it's looking at the present through a future lens. So everything in science fiction is basically a reflection on what society is feeling now. It's just the creative license to go into the future and look back at it and say, what could we learn from that? The other thing that's really important about it to me was my first intersection with genre. and kind of realizing what you can do with a genre, what a certain set of boundaries give you. And you can push against that, and people can push outside of it and be outside or inside it. Um, but you can never, like, you have to sort of respect the boundaries a little bit in order to like get the magic of it. That doesn't mean that it hasn't changed, and science fiction genre has changed as more women are writing, more people of color, more formats stretching into graphic novels and games. And it's actually really cool to see how the whole genre has transcended from kind of white men writing pulp fiction in the 40s to what it is now, which is a true kaleidoscope. So I find that very inspirational. Uh, Part three, I'm a DJ. I fell in love with electronic music in my teens. I never looked back. DJing was a way to express feelings that I couldn't express in words. I've performed as Kid Kameleon since '97. I've been able to perform all over the world. I can drop my SoundCloud link in the chat later. Um, and what I take from this is building a set is experience design. Not performing, although that is too, but literally just the sequence of music that you're going to play over a period of time. It has highs, has lows. It's got a narrative. You can think of it as an architectural space that you're filling with different elements. I can go really deep on how experience like DJing is actually experience design, even just from the point of view of the music. So maybe we can get into that. One of my life's goals is to support the rising of new music genres. And the best way to do this is to get people in real space and kind of see what sounds arise and see what technologies lead to different kinds of sounds and different interactions with sounds, and how these influence the arising of different genres and different scenes and different people who interact with these genres almost exclusively in these spaces. So again, like sci-fi, you're pushing the boundaries of things by creating a space for people to play in. And you can go really deep into how you set up the events, and what's the entrance and what's the flow and who plays when and all that sort of stuff. So this has also been influential. I spent the bulk of my early career in journalism and editorial, places like Vice and Accelerator and Pitchfork. Journalism taught me to take what I was seeing in DJing and music events and kind of look at it really through the lens of scenes and the cracks and shadows and things that were forming and immersive. Basically, like what cultures were hacking certain things in certain ways to create new sounds, and what did that do for a scene? And how do you name them? How do you talk about them? Music journalists get asked all the time, well, what is this thing called? And sometimes people set us up to be like the arbiters of, was this thing in or out? And which we're not, but we're just like highly interested people in thinking about that space. One of my proudest naming moments was coining and evangelizing the term bass music. I wrote a column for Accelerator called Basic Needs in the late from like 06 to 09. And bass music was what I was seeing in the emergence of dub and early dubstep, and some aspects of hip hop and some aspects of just general stuff floating around in the electronic sphere, that really became like this force that eventually turned into EDM, what became known as EDM in the teens. It was really fun to kind of be at the forefront of that and kind of put a term around it and like try and find that one term that was like, what's the one thing that holds all of this together? It was the bass. So those are like the 5 ingredients that shapes how I think about immersive design. Reflecting on those 5, there's 3 insights that stick with me and feel relevant to my current work. And hopefully these are, I think these are no-brainers for anybody who kind of works in production or experience design, but here they are. 1, it's the vibe. The end of the day, beyond work, beyond planning, if the vibe is off, nothing works, or it just kind of works. And as designers, we know that the worst thing that almost anyone can say about your work is, eh. And that means that there's just no vibe there. So there has to be a vibe. Second thing, what we name things matters. Names set the stage at the beginning of a project. They help you in the middle as you orient yourself when the project has maybe changed shape. And it helps at the end when you're going to tell the world about it. Names are not the only way to know something, but they have incredible power. And they are, I like to think of them as magic spells. When you know the name of something, you can cast magic. And then number three, I feel like I've already alluded to this, but where tech goes, culture follows. Technology breeds scenes and identities. Seen this through my work in music, people hacking and iterating and redefining tech as a way to rewrite culture, remixing things, often in a way to feel more inclusive of a certain set of people. Yeah, where people have places to be safe and to create. So with that kind of setting the stage, as it were, after journalism, I pivoted into working for tech that connected people on a global scale. And I had an opportunity to take a job or work with Oculus in 2018. At the time, Oculus was owned by Facebook. Oculus has now turned into Quest. Facebook has now turned into Meta. But I joined the company 2018 and I've been really excited about it ever since. So let's dive in. A little bit of framing for Meta. First of all, content design. My role at Meta is as a content designer. Content design is responsible for the expression of concepts throughout the experience. Our main tool is words. A lot of us were journalists and writers, all kinds, poets. But we are design thinkers for whom everything is on the table. Sound, animation, UX design, visual design, game design, insights from marketing and research and stuff like that. All of these kind of lead to looking at the concepts throughout the experience and finding the right words or other modes of expression for them. There's lots of ways to kind of say what makes us up, but the little Venn diagram on the right is sort of my 4 favorite ones to come together for content designs. And on the left, you can see some of us. We're actually the largest team like this in the world. Very proud. I think there's a couple of my colleagues on the call today. So, hey, everybody. Last thing to say is one of our jobs is to look at the language used in the space and see if it adds up to the right vibe, the right moment, for the right purpose, for the right person experiencing the thing that's right for the platform. So it's like the time, the viewer, the person, and the platform. That all has to come together to work. Work at Reality Labs, RL's headquarters. Reality Labs makes VR headsets, glasses, and the software that powers them. We also have research divisions focused on near term and far term. It is pretty much like getting to work at the heart of a science fiction ecosystem, which is really fun. And one of the things Reality Labs builds is Meta Horizon. The basic way to describe Horizon is that it's a software experience that runs in your headset and also on mobile. That includes the operating system, all of our immersive experiences, every avatar you've ever seen across Meta, all the safety features, everything that you would need to set up your device and navigate around it. We also have a whole ecosystem of studios that produce content and apps for Reality Labs, games, worlds, and stuff like that. And we also support a developer and creator ecosystem. And the one guiding principle for Meta Horizon is that it will be awesome if people are there. We are building experiences that are inherently immersive and will work if they are social. And the last key concept kind of within Horizon is worlds. So worlds are our kind of like marquee version of immersive experiences. They are interconnected. You show up in them embodied as an avatar. There's a baseline for certain things, how certain things work, like physics and safety and connection, a bunch of tools that help with all that. But the breadth and depth of content that's in them is as wide as the human imagination. Games, hangout spaces, learning spaces. Anyone can build one, and we support creators and studios and developers who build for them. And we have a number of them that we build in-house. Oops, there's music there. And I forgot to hit play. So what you're seeing here is actually one of these worlds. And it is essentially like a conference space that we built for Meta Connect, which is our yearly technology conference. But we held part of Connect actually within Horizon itself. And so we built this space for it. So this is sort of like a kind of a lovely kind of marketing promo video. But one thing that I want to point out that you're going to see right here in a second is that there are actually, this is a live space where there are actually games and puzzles in that help bring people together. And so this was like a bridge building part. You can only get to one of the spaces in this world if you solved a puzzle that built a bridge to get you over here. And I think actually there was like a special hat that you could put on and wear. Like, and so then you would be walking around and people would be like, how did you get that hat? It's like, well, I built the bridge to go over there. It's kind of sparks these connections. I'll go into worlds a little bit more in a second, but okay. But I'm gonna kind of spend the rest of my talk slicing through some of the concepts through one of the particular worlds that I worked on a lot, which is venues. Forgive me for a second because we figured out that there was a bug in Figma that I have to go here to start the video. I can go back to my presenter notes. Are people seeing the video playing now? Can you get a thumbs up? Cool. So yeah, this is venues. Venues is a space for the future of live entertainment. It's a hub world where people gather before jumping into shows. And each one of the 6 buildings around contains a piece of media. It's actually its own world that you can go in and watch a show. Those shows change over time, and also occasionally we reskin venues to match a season. But you're seeing it as it was built originally in 2022, or sorry, not originally, but the one that I worked on in 2022. I've gotten questions before about who's on the team that builds these things. This world was put together by about a dozen people. Besides the managers that oversaw the whole thing, we have product designers, sound designers, conceptual artists, technical artists. A game designer worked on this. Of course, myself as the content designer, and then a bunch of engineers who build the whole thing. And still one of our most popular worlds today. So now for the concepts. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about travel. So before you're in venues, you have to get there. And this is sort of one of my favorite framings that the company has come up with. What is going on under the hood when you're in one place and you go to another place is that you have to load the world. You basically have to get all the bits in place so that it runs smoothly when you're there. But the design affordance for loading is just a loading bar. And that's like the most boring thing in the world. And people can spice it up. But we looked at this and said, it's not loading from the point of view of the person experiencing it. It's traveling. It's going to a world. And once you start to reframe it that way, there's so many possibilities that arise from treating things like a travel space. You get to think about what experience principles come into play, like what are the choice and agency that you have within a travel space? What are the interesting things to look at? Do you see the rest of the metaverse? What would that look like? What Would you specifically see other worlds? Would you see other people? Are you traveling with other people? Are you traveling alone? You're traveling with friends, strangers? How would you stay connected while you're going from one world to another world? And this really like opens up a whole range of possibilities to kind of play with the choices that we can make and some of the things that we can build into the product. Um, and so it also affects our language. And so in the experience, we use words like go and join and invite someone to meet instead of launch application or quit application, stuff like that. Even though, again, under the hood, engineers think of these things as all applications. I segue to naming, the power of naming. Naming has implications on what we build. I alluded to this before. I bet everyone can relate to picking a name, getting kind of far into the production process, then kind of having that moment where you realize you're locked into an experience based on the name that you chose or how you framed it, or maybe you even kind of soft launched, and now the product doesn't match the plans and you have to figure out what to do. So this is one of the most powerful things that content design can do because it influences all the design decisions that come after it. There's a lot of considerations around naming. Some of the questions we use are, where will this be used? How much space do we have to display the name? Will the concept work in other languages? And the question we're very, very fond of asking, and hopefully my colleague Melissa is on the call because I can hear her voice saying, does this really need a name at all? This is the number one thing that we have to like draw people back from naming things. And could we just describe it? So in venues, I told you there are these 6 buildings where you can go in and watch content. We needed a name for each one of these buildings. This was particularly fun because you name things as a system. So you also get to think about like, well, what is the feeling of the system of names? How do they all work together? How did those systems stack on other systems that we're using for other things? And so here are 3 of them. I had the Deco Tavern on the left, which was like for our general purpose content. The Boombox was in the middle, and that was reserved for music content, live concerts. And then the Polygon was on the right, and that was for sports. And that had a funny, there's an implication in that because artists think of these worlds as being built up of using polygons. That's how they talk about like how many polygons are in this world. So there was a little kind of like nod to like the tech state of things with the polygon for the sports building. If I like can really impart, like to close this, if there is someone on your team who isn't just writing copy, but who is actively thinking about the ecosystem of what things are called and how they're framed in your experiences, that person is so valuable. And it's amazing to have a team member dedicated to just taking that on. It pays huge dividends. All right, make myself pause and take a sip of water. So you've gotten yourself to venues. Where are your friends and how are you going to get them together to hang out? This touches on the naming project I worked on the longest at Meta, probably over a year and a half, of what is the name of the container that holds all of us when we're able to hear each other and at least one of us is in VR. If you can only put one word on a button, what is that word? It turns out that the word for that, the best word in our opinion, is that it's a call. It's the most understandable mental model. But these calls don't work like other calls. Like we're like, it's a call, but you can be there, but you can also not be there if you want, but it can definitely hear you. And so we spent all this time being like, is it going to be a hangout? Is it going to be, we made up words like glimmer. And at the end of the day, the most understandable thing was a call. So how does this work? I'm going to play this video and it's going to go super fast and then I'm going to go back and explain it. So here is calling in VR. Oops.
Hey.
Okay, that went super fast. It's the marketing folks had to make a 30-second spot to introduce a feature. But I will take you back through a couple of key moments, actually, because I want to make sure we have time for discussion. I'll just talk about this one. So, this mouse. Okay, so friends come into VR, they're in a headset, they're playing, they're hanging out, and you're like, okay, let's invite another friend. Let's invite Lindsay. This is the interface where you can like see other people that you're connected to. And I don't know if you can see it, but there is the tiny word call over that phone. So then what happens next is that call starts and it rings this phone. She picks it up and is immediately with her friends in venues. So two things are crazy there. One, this is making a call with this device to this device. Like that alone is kind of a crazy idea. Like, and it works in reverse. I can use this device to call someone who is wearing this and they will get it and pick it up. The second part is magically, because it's a marketing video, she just ended up there. Like it was just like, oh, she's right there. That is sort of the dream. We are there. That can happen. The thing is, technically, we need to be able to make that happen for everybody on every surface anywhere. Like it just seamlessly works that you can do that sort of like, I call you and you just show up and you're there. There is a massive amount of design work and technical work to just be able to make that happen. And we have to make it clear to everybody with one word on one button what's going to happen when you click that button. So hence a year and a half's worth of work to name it. All right. Writing in VR, now that you're in venues and you understand how a place works, a lot of the weight falls to words to help you explain, to help explain what's going on. How we communicate in our product is kind of a way that we scale the vibe. And here's a bunch of examples from across platforms of like the kind of writing that we do. The games and venues one all the way to the left, something that I wrote to explain the popcorn machine game that was there. It's the first game that you get to when you get to venues. But yeah, we have all kinds of guidance around voice and tone, about how to kind of make our writing consistent across all the surfaces, how to modulate it for the different kind of situations that people are in. So two examples, the notification on the kind of bottom left where it says Meta Horizon Worlds, catch a vibe by the fire, play cornhole, or jump right in the lake at Camp Getaway. That's like, we are assuming that the people who read it might be receptive to like kind of an excited tone. And so we write in a particular way for that space. Compare that to the top right. Our teams are working on the outage in the background. We understand that this can be frustrating and appreciate your patience as we sort through it. Same voice, sounds kind of like the same person is talking, but the one on the right has a deep understanding that person might be pissed off while they're reading this. And so they like want to be addressed in a way that acknowledges that. All right, so your friends are there. You've called them, you've gotten there. You've oriented yourself by the signs that are around. You're waiting for show to start. How does the world work? What are you going to do while you hang out? And this is where you get into world design. It's like experiential design, but for virtual spaces. So this is where you get to think about classic things like sight lines and where the people are, how do they move around through the space, what are the most used paths, does it feel crowded, what would be fatiguing versus fun, what are the activities around that help gather people? And remember, we can build every pixel of that. Venues is tailored to a bunch of different types of people, so we also need to account for that. And so we scattered activities throughout the world. Some of them were for the types of people that might want to meet and be social, and there was actually a gaming loop for that, which was gather, strategize, converse. And so we built certain games that would be good for that. Teens are much more interested in playing with their identity. And so the loop for that was gather, adventure, identity. And the prize at the end of those types of games was actually a bunch of wearables, different hats and costumes and stuff like that. You could dress your avatar up because that's what teens want, to play with their identity, or one of the things was our thesis. And then there's people that just want to have fun. And that gaming loop is gather, action, power. And so it's like, did you get to the top of the mountain? Like, did everyone else fall down? You feel powerful. So that's the world design. Last piece, last concept showing up in venues. This is a bit of an internal term, discovery, like how do you find something to do? But like it refers to a whole bunch of stuff around like what's the content ecosystem of Horizon and Worlds. One way to think about this is, okay, what do I do next? I went to the show, I went to the Post Malone show. We actually built a Post Malone after party because we were like, oh, maybe people like had a good time and they want to keep going. After parties are tricky. As anyone who's tried to go to an after party in a real life knows, like you have to figure out where it is. You have to make sure that someone is sober enough to get you there. Hey, like, did you go there? Are you here yet? Like how, like, all this stuff. Well, that also has to work in VR. And so, or in immersive experiences, and on mobile too. So we have all these technical challenges of, okay, the show ends, and then we're going to open the gate to this new world, but it's only going to happen at this time. How are we going to tell people that? Where are we going to put them? And then if they're together with their friends, we don't want to break up the friend group. So how do we send them all to the after party as a group and keep them connected? And it's really like a pretty hard challenge. But we made it work. And actually, one of the awesomest moments was that Post Malone actually came to his own after party. And one of our artists, Randy, was like, guys, I think Post Malone is here. And he had an avatar that said Posty or something like that. And so that's just connecting together two worlds. Do that again. We have thousands of worlds, maybe tens of thousands of worlds. Then that's just the worlds. Then there are the apps, the immersive browsing experiences, and onwards. And eventually, of course, we have to think about things that are not in the meta ecosystem or in the Horizon ecosystem at all. Like how do we keep people connected when they go to a different device? Or maybe they are like not immersed in immersive reality, but they're in a partially augmented world. So like it's just kind of keeps going and going and going. All right. Thank you for staying with me through all those 6 concepts. Just closing with 2 thoughts about kind of what's next for this and to draw it together. Um, I love this quote from science fiction writer Ian Banks. I deliberately set the interstellar velocity for a starship for the culture novels that he's writing. I set the velocity for a starship to travel to the far side of the galaxy and back, to be the same as the time it took for a sailing ship to circumnavigate the Earth. It was a value that felt right, and in fiction, that's often all that matters. I love this because it applies to the experience. It alludes to the experience that someone is having, in this case, reading a book, but it could be in Meta Horizon. It's about picking a concept. It's about picking a guiding North Star for when you build experiences. And it's about trusting your instincts about what feels right. There is one word of caution here, though, which is what feels right is incredibly biased. We all have our biases. We all have our subjectivity. This is actually the place where I'm most proud of the content design discipline, because we are tasked with sort of questioning that what feels right part, because we're tasked with thinking about people who are not like ourselves. and trying to make good calls for the concepts we introduce so that they work for everyone in every state of mind. And how can you sort of pull people forward safely into new concepts like a new kind of calling? How can you push people there while being respectful of where people are at, where they're being slightly pushed, or at least in reality labs? So that's one thing. And then, oh, let's play. Love this little video. This is actually a moment where you actually literally get to see world building. So this is how worlds are actually built um, in Horizon. You actually are, you kind of turn into this giant, we call it God mode. You actually turn into these giants and you actually build the world. But just using this as a way to jump off to ecosystems. So we aren't just building a one-off immersive experience. This is not just a museum display where people are wearing augmented reality glasses, or it's not like building a holistic VR app where someone's going to go in, have an experience, and then leave. What we're trying to do is think about that as an ecosystem. Um, what are the questions that come up when you build a platform for thousands of experiences connected together and millions of people using these experiences in different ways in a world where VR devices and augmented reality devices are as common as phones. And that world is coming. And I'm not saying that it's all going to be quests, but more and more and more, these devices are going to be more and more common if you think into the 5 and 10 and 15-year time span. So this brings out a lot of really interesting questions. What's the future of theater where everyone has VR glasses, or you can make a reasonable assumption that everybody coming to a show on Broadway might be able to like bring an augmentation device with them. What does it mean for DJing? Are people still going to want to go to clubs? Yes, for sure. But what about the people that can't make it? How do they realistically join? And yeah, just sort of closing with the thought of in all of this, you have to go back to where tech goes, culture follows. Um, how, so we designers may have an idea about how this is going to work, but then being really, really curious and open about what populations who are using these devices and experiences, how they're hacking it, how they're remixing it, what culture is coming up through their use or misuse or creative use of these devices. So yeah, and oops, that's right. That's it. That's it for me. I'd love to turn it over to Q&A and discussion. I threw a couple prompts in here. How do aspects of this affect your work? How could this be influencing what you're doing? What's exciting about this? What's scary about it? So with that, thank you, Josh, and I'll turn it back over to you and I'll stop sharing.
All right. Matt, that was awesome. I have so many questions myself, but you guys probably know the drill. If you don't know the drill, yeah, just raise your hand or just like go on camera and you can ask your question. We can call on you. Or I can also kick it off with some of my own questions. I have many.
Thank you.
Should I kick it off?
Uh,
So I'm like actually, one of the things I'm really curious about is what are you seeing as like sort of the major reasons people are going to these worlds? Is it like around like events and specific things to do? Is it around like gathering? Like, is it around games? What are like the driving use cases right now?
yeah, games is a huge one right now. I would say games is one, entertainment is one, and really though, just a basic kind of social connection. Just as it is still early, so there is a sort of like it's people that are like, oh, I have this device, like check this out, isn't this pretty cool? But what we found is some of the most retentive worlds that we have uh, are actually the worlds where people are just gathering to catch up with each other and kind of like look around and like travel from place to place. And it's almost like a catalyst for reigniting their connection. Um, so games are popular, venues is popular, but like that kind of like, hey, I have a headset, you have a headset or a phone, like what is this place like? The curious explorers are really big right now.
And for example, like that Post Malone concert, like how many, like, do you know how many people showed up thereabouts? Like,
I don't remember the exact number. It was in the several thousands.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was about three years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of funny because like I was thinking about, you're talking about like naming things, but like
Mhm.
there's so many things that like in our real world that like you can't, it's like, okay, you can have a restaurant, but like you can't serve food in VR. You can have a coffee shop, but you can't do like there's actually like a lot of the analogs like don't actually work in VR. So like I wonder like how you start thinking about those spaces.
Yeah, I would say they don't work as we think of them working
Yeah,
now, but it doesn't mean they don't work. And I'm positive that somewhere in worlds there's a coffee shop world. There's
right.
definitely there's one of our more popular worlds is called McDonald's, and it is basically like a recreation of the McDonald's. And sure, you're not going to actually taste the fries yet. Maybe someone somewhere is working on that, but you absolutely can recreate the sort of social space of these things. And a coffee shop is a great example. Like, yeah, there might not be any coffee there yet. You can bring coffee with yourself, but it's actually surprisingly, amazingly easy to kind of start to create the sense of a coffee shop there. Uh, but then where people take that and where they go with it is kind of wild. So
Oh my gosh. All right. I want to create a Philly dive bar. I'll bring my own booze. Melissa, you had a question.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Matt. Matt, thank you for the presentation. That was really cool. So I've got two questions. One's a little bit more off base, so if you don't want to answer, that's okay. All right. But I work in the museum space, the science museum space, especially California Academy of Sciences. And when you're talking about content design, I could not help but think about trying to communicate like climate crisis communication, this sort of idea of think about people not like ourselves in every different state of mind, how to pull people towards new concepts while being respectful about where they're currently at. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts or resources to point me to about maybe an overlap between content design and that kind of communication. And then if that's too out of board, I'm just also curious about what you might have to, the thoughts you have on worlds and like education in there. I can see like going to a world where I can like walk inside a body of a cell and like meet a mitochondria instead of learning about it in a book.
yeah, totally. They're both great questions. We uh, we had an org called VR for Good that really focused really on sort of creating bespoke experiences, not in worlds at the time, which is more like fully immersive apps. Um, and I would have to go and find like the that org doesn't exist anymore. But those kind of resources kind of exist in general, sort of like people thinking about how do we teach specifically about climate crisis. That would be a little bit more right now, somebody building an immersive app for the ecosystem. As far as content design for it, content design in this, there, content design is a weird thing because people are like, oh, like the content that is in the app, that is something we might advise on, but we're more like, okay, how would you write about it? How would you frame it? That's more like kind of looking for resources that are just how content designers do their job. And I would think like we have a global conference every year called Confab. That is a really great, that's basically where all the world's content designers gather. I'm sure there's some resources through Confab.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not confusing that with Figma's conference, but
Yeah.
someone correct me if I am. But I would say that some of the big button conference is another UX conference where CDs show up. So I would point you for those resources. And then remind me your second question, like, oh, can we just build a world where we look at mitochondria?
Yeah, I just am wondering if there's anything, I'm sure there is, what you know about being done as far as educational worlds where it's something that's flat in a book you can actually walk into the deep sea, walk into like a human cell, if anything like that's happening.
There, yes, totally. And I would say that again is happening. Worlds are sort of new enough that anyone can build a world for anything. So it's absolutely possible that someone could like try and create that with the tools that we have. There are a lot of apps out there dedicated to education. I think even in the Meta Horizon store, there's even a whole tag. I believe that there's a tag for education. So I would say sort of like getting into the store and sort of just seeing, and you can actually search the store on a web interface, seeing kind of Meta Horizon store, you know, education environment apps, you would probably lead you to some good hits.
All right, great. I would also say the Augmented World Expo, awe.xr added in the chat. Like, look at their like award winners because they usually have a whole education track, and there's like a bunch of really great ones there. Scott G, you had a question.
Yeah, just had a question. By the way, just wrapped at Priceless, so just wanted to say sorry we missed you there. And the picture you showed was a stage that I worked on, which is hilarious, the Miss stage. So I'm glad to see that. But I was curious about the types of interactions you're directing people to do, and thinking through how that impacts like both the communities that are playing and interacting in those ways, and also like society in general. Like specifically, like we're directing them towards different content and different ways in which they interact, which I think will impact how they are and show up as people in different ways. And I'm just curious if you thought about like how that content plays with them and ways in which it impacts them. And also just like because of that, like if we, for instance, compare the TikTok algorithm in China versus the US, it's very different of the type of content that's pushed to people. So I'm curious about like what type of content and what you think about when you make that type of content for people.
Yeah, totally. Again, there's sort of a little bit of two questions in there, which is like one, what is the content and what would we make? Like, what are the kinds of experiences? And that could be an app or that could be something that we put in a world. And then there's how we talk about it. The talk about it part is a little bit easier for me to talk about. But basically simple, straightforward, and human, and being clear and understandable and direct are a lot of the like primary ways that content designers think about their work. We try and work against dark patterns, so like pushing people to things that then it's like, oh, you like we used words to kind of trick you. Like the worst thing that a CD can do is like trick somebody into doing something. So from the point of view of content design, we are always pushing for simple, straightforward human words. And we're going back on the to people in the product and people in the business and saying like, look, the way that you're framing this like doesn't work. Like we shouldn't build this. We actually have, it's a very big thing at Meta to stop the line and say like, don't build this. So there are content designers who have stopped the line on certain products. What does the algorithm feed you? How, like, what shows up in a discovery surface? What has been built? And how do we recommend? This is obviously, I mean, I work for Meta. Like we build Facebook and Instagram. So there are huge teams that work on that. I don't know the like, and if I did know, I probably couldn't talk about like the internal like ranking stuff there. I will say that my touch point is the PMs and the eng managers and those folks that I work with. And it is very, very active discussions about like how we get people the right things that they care about and sort of seed the ecosystem, because this is a new ecosystem where we like have to show people things that are exciting and engaging, with not showing them garbage and not showing them things and like trying to push things on people. It's like, okay, you finished that thing, now go do that thing. There is a feed because it's a common pattern in Horizon that just shows you different things, but it's not like it doesn't work like an infinite scroll of TikTok or Instagram, because we don't want people scrolling. We want people to like go into these experiences. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. And thank you for that. I'm glad I picked that picture. I was going to use another one. So thank you for building the stage. Amy.
I muted myself. Amy, you have a question.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much. This has been such a great presentation. It's actually my first time coming to one of these sessions. I am a writer for mostly the themed entertainment realm, especially theme parks, and we've been seeing a lot of the virtual world kind of conjoin more with the physical world in theme parks. For example, Epic Universe, we have Nintendo World, which has seen a huge uptick of gamification when it comes to themed entertainment areas. And I was just curious, no problem if you don't really have a viewpoint about it, but do you see more of an appetite for the integration of immersive virtual spaces and immersive physical spaces on your end?
Absolutely. I think that's probably the single most exciting thing that I can think about. We love to get our devices into the hands of someone at a Universal or someone at a Disney, and whether or not they're like official partnerships, one of the most awesome things that the surprise content org, meaning the people within the metaverse org that make the games and like run our studios, they're always talking to kind of people like the big players in this space. We want people, we have direct developer communications with them. And I think Meta doesn't support it like on a programmatic level, but there are always these amazing conversations going on, and we really, really, really want people to be doing more of this stuff. And I think that is also a little bit more of the purview of kind of our augmented reality glasses as well. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of immediately think of the use cases for that. But honestly, doing it with headsets or like kind of all these new form factors that are coming out it's a really exciting space. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. And then, Matt and I were actually talking about maybe doing a version of this in the MetaQuest, or like, or we'll figure out, or if we don't have time for your questions, just like shoot me an email at josh@futurespace.com and I'll sync with Matt and try to get an answer for you. But Martin, if you have your question.
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. I work for an auction house, and I want to ask you, I have actually two questions. Sometimes the headset, I start with an Oculus. It can be still cumbersome also for maybe older folks. How close in the near future would you say are we, to a more practical device? Maybe Apple Vision was not quite distributed as people would imagine. And two, what role does AI play in your work stream? I detect, there's a meta house style of characters. Is that chosen? Who drives that? I'll stop here.
Yeah, those are two huge questions. Fortunately, the answer to the first one is pretty short in the sense that this is a common thing that we've heard about the feel and weight of the headset, and we are always working to improve it. As to timelines, all I can say is that this is a known problem, and we're working on it, and hopefully always with every iteration to make the headset and the experience more comfortable. As for AI and super intelligence, maybe if you've read some of Mark's most recent posts, we don't have a super intelligence org yet within Reality Labs. AI is something that we are tracking, and actually it's cool that you mentioned avatars. One of the best places to see AI is actually auto-gen clothing for avatars. You can use some pretty simple tools to basically modify a shirt or a pair of pants or an outfit to put your own logos in it, and that is all done through AI. There are a lot of other things that we are working on. So it's a thing that we sort of like look at, and we are always trying to introduce new ways to make things more practical and useful and easy in the headset. There isn't like some giant AI overlay within the headset right now. But check out AutoGen clothing for avatars. That's one place where you can see it in action.
Thank you.
Right. Charles, we're going to try to slip one last question in, and then Matt, after that, I'll let you sign it off.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, Matt, so great hearing more about all of your myriad inspirations that you're using to get into this, from DJing to journalism to design. I'm really curious about you as a person. Like, what are you the most excited about, spending your time on going forward, and what should we reach out to you for when that thing comes up?
Thank you, Charles, for asking that. I would say that, like, to the question about kind of working on theme parks and and immersive experiences that are being built in the real world where I can kind of help and partner with and kind of bring some insights from this team into how we're really going to up level theatrical like experiences, club experiences, concert experiences. I find like Sphere to be a very like inspirational thing, but like you can't build a Sphere basically anywhere outside of Las Vegas. So people that are like doing some of the really amazing production stuff that's coming out of Los Angeles and also maybe New York, where people are trying to build awesome immersive experiences that have a physical component that want it augmented, and the technology that would allow productions like that to happen. That's something that I'm super curious in.
All right. Good sign off question. All right, Matt, thank you so much. This was like brilliant. I actually personally have like a million other questions. But like maybe we'll follow this up and do this in the MetaQuest.
Yeah, totally. And uh, my email is just my name, Matt Earp at Gmail. I'll put it in. Oh, I was gonna put in my SoundCloud link, cloud.com/Kid Kameleon, but like and Earp at gmail.com. Those are two ways to reach out to me, but please continue the conversation. You can find me on LinkedIn, Matt Earp as well. So yeah.
All right, amazing. Matt, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Hope you can make it to a future Spaces session, either over Zoom or maybe in a VR space, and a few in real life. I'm hoping to do. So thank you again, Matt. This is awesome. All right, have a great one, everyone. See you.
Bye.